I'm redoing my autobiography on YouTube because the original one was too graphic and too much raw detail. And I was asked by a follower and a fan uh, for historical purposes if I could please redo it in the unrestricted channel that I have so that anybody of any age could access my story. And, you know, you never know, even an 8-year-old could benefit from the knowledge of what happened to me. Um, and it's much too long for me to do. I'll have to do it in 1 hour chapters. I've done this before, and I don't know how much battery I've got, but anyway. Um, I'm calling it Okra Raw Saves Amazing Bubble Woman's Life because the tabloids recognize me as a bubble woman, which I was. And I'm still in a gas mask, but I don't have to sleep in a gas mask anymore, which I did for a number of years. And this is an absolutely true story. I'm starting it a little backwards because for people who haven't the patience to listen to me, I want you to know in some detail about Okra first. My writing style is still very, very damaged. All my memory was wiped out for over a 22-year period, and I had to relearn the very meaning of words. I see my life not in normal memory, but in flashbacks. This makes it impossible for me to write in a perfect chronological order. I write only to save children from my disease, knowing full well it is unlikely I'll ever get published in today's world. And I'm competing with billions of people to be heard every day, and I'm just not going to get there. My supply of frozen okra ran out, and terror struck as I faced becoming a paraplegic all over again at 77. I've already endured a holocaust of brutality and torture, and I just could not grasp what I should do. And suddenly it came to me as if in a vision, the answer. I kind of woke up with it. Okra saved my life, and without it I will either die a slow and painful death or become a paraplegic again. And I am alive only because of a few frozen, thawed okra a day. I've struggled since 1995 to find a way to write and get my story out to the world with very little success. I tried 100 ways and thousands of pages and hundreds of titles and videos, you name it, I tried. I was once a very successful real estate investment consultant and to millionaires in Toronto, but mainly I preferred to work with poor people and help them with getting an income from a property and as an investment. I even helped one woman get off welfare. And so I've done my little bit over the years, and I certainly have my critics out there. They sort of pick at me because I'm not perfect. Like some guy has really given me flack on YouTube over my article on my YouTube on Comwave being fraudulent. I mean, you know, they're so stupid. There's so much more important things to do. And he claims that he knows how fraudulent Canada is. Well, if you know that, then why aren't you fighting it instead of picking a fight with me? But you know, it's just a small, stupid example. As if I didn't have enough to live with my brain damage and Parkinsonism. Suddenly, in 1983, at the age of 42, I was struck down with a paralyzing attack that lasted 5 months. My clients, believe me, at the time were wonderful, and they tried to rescue me, but to no avail. I came to in a fog, no longer able to read with comprehension or write a sentence. I had entirely lost my memory, even though I could walk, even dance, but I could not climb stairs. I had to crawl on my hands and knees to get up the stairs. I could slide on a flat surface, but and having had dancers training, I can sort of glide in a rather good-looking way. Not sure if that helped my cause or not. I should have been on crutches and let people see how bad I was. But I was trained to look good, you see. So And the thing is that crippling attacks weren't unusual, for I'd had such attacks since I was 6 years old. Except I always came out of it. One time it took over 2 months, another time it took 3 months. But the point is, I always came out of it, and I did not lose my memory. So this time I was finished. I had a brilliant brain. I was diagnosed by a consultant who did some tests on me, and he said I had a genius talents, and something called hypnogenetic imagery analysis, which we won't go into, but it certainly means that I was gifted. And I was also a trained model because of my mother, and did modeling for fun since I was a teenager and on and off through the years with friends who were designers. But by March 1984, my brain could not even remember who I was, where I'd been, or what happened to me. Now, I'd had blackouts also, but I still came to with memory and I could go back to work. But this time, I couldn't do that. It was so bad I had to pin notes to my clothes so I would know where I was going and why. I could not remember an hour before where I'd been or why I'd been there. And that story does remain unpublished to this day, and it probably will for 200 years. 1995, I had a miracle. As my attacks were so severe, I was terminal again. Not for the first time, but this time I was terminal. And I had spent all these years researching how to pull out of it, and had a diet for disease control that was like Star Wars on everybody else but me. Anyway, Okra did rejuvenate my brain, and once more I was able to relearn. But that's not the same as memory. As if I was 5 years old, I had to relearn the very meaning of words, how to make a simple grammatically correct sentence. And it's no easy task when you are allergic to the planet and living in a gas mask. Finally, in 2018, I took from my journals and thousands of pictures of me from the time I was born and now, and put my story out on videos, uploading 39 chapters, one video for each chapter. And they are on my restricted YouTube channel. And I'm hoping that Google will keep it there for a couple of 100 years, because that's what it's going to take. I also have an unrestricted YouTube channel for anyone of any age. Children look at my videos on skiing, and young people look at my videos on dancing. It took me from 1995 to 2019. So telling my life on video was the only way I could tell it, was to look at the pictures of myself, triggering myself, going into flashback, horrific, painful memories, and then speaking of what I was seeing and what had happened to me. And that means the language had to be explicit and raw, authentic to the situation at the time. I have not uploaded to my Facebook timeline all my research into diets for disease control, and the evidence on real estate law is an invitation to commit fraud, or how to protect yourself at that time. As well, I eventually did all that, as of now, 2019, as well as on a website, Okra for Life. I uploaded each video with the pictures of that time, the period, the modeling, my nude and semi-nude, or at a dance, and who I was with in my homes, showing visually in pictures with each chapter on a restricted website, by the way. But you know, there are people who know how to who'll get it if they're interested. And in each video beside it on the website, I put pictures of the time at the time period during which what I was talking about, and that time frame. And but only Google will take you there. You can't get there on Safari. Apple is blocking it. I've had a lot of trouble with Safari. I could spend an hour on that, and we won't. Not at the moment. They're getting as bad as Microsoft. That's not a recommendation. But nobody's better than Google. They're so wonderful to me, I swear to God. And I'm so grateful to Google. And I did it so I would not forget myself again, to tell you the truth, because I know I'm not going to get published. And then I uploaded everything again onto my Facebook timeline for posterity and historical purposes. Previously, a kind vice president of Warner Books New York, who was married to Cary Grant's widow, called me personally to explain to me why I could never get published in this age of social media. I'm just not famous enough, and I don't have enough community support in my cause to save children from my disease. He said he loved my profile pictures and asked for permission to keep them. And of course, I was more than flattered, and I said yes. And I was really grateful that he took the time to call me and explain to me. He was worried that I was exhausting myself trying to write and get published, and that it was just making me sick, and he felt that I really should continue with my research into my diets for disease control and concentrate on that and get as well as I could. What a wonderful man. I don't remember his name, of course. You see, that's what happens. And if I wrote it down, I lost it. I don't know. So, but it doesn't matter. God knows that he called me, and he won't be alive now. That was such a long time ago. And so it was anyway. I learned to navigate the internet, and I sent out a collage as simple as I could of the three me's, who I used to be, and a copy of the Sun Florida brief article, which explains me better than I can and who I became. And it is absolutely true that raw okra, yes, there's a little picture I'm going to show you of, try to show you a little bit as we go along. Oops, yeah, there we are. That saved my life and continues to, in fact, to this very day. And it's kept me alive these many cruel years. I just lost my glasses. Excuse me, folks, 1 minute. God, I hate myself sometimes. Oh, here we are. Phooey. Sorry. Well, listen, I'm 77 and I got brain damage, so, I do the best I can. Anyway, I really feel that you need to understand the full impact of the miraculous effects of okra on reversing my brain damage, both to me and others, and controlling horrific paralyzing attacks. And pain so excruciating is like being electrocuted over and over again through every molecule in my body. My brain shuts down, I cannot speak coherently, I cannot answer your questions, and I cannot walk. I am a semi-catatonic paraplegic living with dying by inches. Every second is an eternity of brutal torture. I believe you must know to what degree the brutality and torture of what I endured, what caused my suffering, what caused the disease to destroy and rob me of my once beautiful, successful lifestyle, for you to appreciate what okra can do. Also, to what extent the truth is being withheld from you, the public, doctors, and modern medicine. Truthfully, some know and they're withholding it, but most don't know either because of the corruption. And to what degree of financial, physical, and society's measure of success I had attained. Now you have to consider to what degree did society, including our Canadian fascist Health Canada, play in its deadly role in causing a disease that would plague children for generations to come. Canola oil was one of the main triggers in my disease, but it's not the only cause. There are thousands of chemicals that are causing my disease to children and passing it, and to parents who pass it genetically to their children. And without you getting all these facts, you cannot fully appreciate the full, incredible, amazing, powerful brain benefits of raw okra and the discovery of an okra diet for disease control. Now, those discoveries took me a lifetime, 70 years to be exact. Today at 77, I'm 78 in September, I am in jeopardy of becoming a paraplegic all over again, because there is absolutely no community or media support, and when I run out of okra, I'm doomed. For now, Chris Independent Grocer, a Loblaws franchise in Sudbury, Ontario, has ordered a special shipment and is trying to help me. I have for the past 4 years suffered more nerve damage from a tumor that cannot be operated on, as if I didn't have enough wrong with me. Only okra, if eaten raw daily, keeps me alive, and I have worked very hard to reverse the nerve damage. And I can't do it without okra. Now, I went off okra daily for 6 weeks, just to see how long it would last. And I started to lose my memory, and I began to become crippled again, and very dysfunctional. Now, if the media and the community had supported me in my fight to save children from my disease, everyone would be demanding frozen okra. Thousands right here in Sudbury could be saved, and I would not be facing death again. If I had not moved back to Sudbury from Wasaga Beach in 2005, I would not be facing this dilemma all over again and all over again and all over again for the past 20 years. Buying okra raw is not safe for me. By the time we get it shipped from southern climates, Sudbury, Ontario is a 5-hour drive north from Toronto. The raw okra is already starting to wilt, and the full benefit of its natural amphetamine powers like vitamin C is diminished. Now, despite being very ill recently, I have a dangerously low impaired immune system also from toxic chemicals. And okra does not help me with that. Garlic pills is what I use to help me with that. But I got a deadly contagious virus. I went to a dance 2 weeks ago, and every time I step outside, I risk taking an attack. I risk dying. So I don't stop. I do what I can. And people will say, how can she dance and still be crippled? Well, listen, people, as a trained model and dancer, I know how to glide and look great, but that doesn't mean I'm okay. I still have to crawl on my hands and knees to climb the stairs since 2014. Now it's 2019, so count the years, people. I'm an optical illusion. I'm going to look good in my coffin, but what you cannot see is the brain damage and the horrific, brutal torture I have endured since the age of 6. I live with dying and fight to survive every day. I step 1 foot outside or anywhere I go in public, I risk my life. Yes, all that stands between me and death is my Advantage MSA gas mask, a few raw okra, garlic pills, a dozen health supplements daily, and my diet for disease control, which is on a free website. And I'll put the websites, I'll type that on if you're at all interested, which I doubt, but anyway, I will. But it contains 70 years of research, and I went as far back as 2,000 years in health books and science, and then I got the help of American agencies. I have never received any help in Canada. I am 35 years 100% clean, sober, and prescription drug free, despite my Parkinsonism diagnosed in New York City in 1989. No diagnosis is possible in Canada due to Health Canada's corruption. No doctor and no drug can cure this horrific disease caused by chemicals now spreading in leaps and bounds worldwide. Furthermore, if Health Canada is successful in outlawing all holistic medicine, as they did hundreds of years ago, they're back at it again, trying to force health supplements to be by prescription with doctors and remove our few rights to choice, which we ain't got much now. Your children are doomed to suffer as I did. Now, I have all that evidence on my Facebook timeline. So if you want to quit right now, quit. But I'm going to go on to tell you, to the best of my ability, for historical purposes, my story. Millions of children will be doomed to live with dying as I've done, except the difference is that they and their parents will not know that they could have been saved with just a few raw okra, nature's natural amphetamine detox. Yes, it feeds the brain. It helps you grow new brain cells. It rejuvenates the brain. It restores memory. It even gives you powers in your brain that you don't know you've got until you get on it. I've tested it on a lot of people over the years with unbelievable success. One child with autism. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. He just a few okra, and of course his mother was smart. She already did the research with Americans and had him on basically the same diet I was on. But he's now in the public school system, and as far as the world is concerned, he's perfectly normal. Well, he's not just normal, he's brilliant. I hope he becomes a doctor for people like us. Anyway, raw okra, just a few a day. It might even cure in early stages if caught early enough. Or at the very least, most certainly, as I am living proof, it can control any number of diseases if you are past the point of being cured. Such brain dysfunction can be controlled. And that is my introduction to my autobiography life story. Okra saved my life, and it could save millions if only someone would publish the truth. How I discovered okra would reverse my brain damage with the help of my local grocery store manager in Wasaga Beach. And it's a whole story in a novel in itself. 1989 to 1995, although I still could not write or had memory, I was dancing and skiing and cross country and downhill, and I was doing really pretty good on my diet, along with my gas mask. I had a number of gas masks, compliments of MSA in Pittsburgh, and I had some really, really good masks over the years. And my body was absolutely fabulous. It was just my brain that was still in a fog. My gift for research analysis, something in my brain computes the information, analyzes it, and throws me a picture with the answer. That's, for the most part, stayed intact. The problem was that I couldn't speak it, I couldn't describe it, and I couldn't write it. So for a brief period, I just got so frustrated, I turned to silly, funny poetry instead of writing just for fun. I even wrote one sexy fantasy, so-called poetry. I didn't, just stupid stuff. I'm not going to publish them. I don't care if anybody ever finds them or what. I just did it to take my mind off the misery that I was living. But despite my limitations, I was actually quite happy, and I had a wonderful community support in Collingwood and Wasaga Beach, and Barrie and Midland and Penetang and all through the Georgian Bay District. 1995, suffice to say, okra put my disease under control, and as long as I wore the gas mask and followed the research I received from Dr. Jaffe, the National Institute of Drug Abuse in North Carolina, USA, and Fred Nelson in Washington sent me information, the NIOSH Department of Chemical Hazards in the United States, and Maria Abda in Seattle, Washington, just to name a few, and Glenn also in Washington. I had already been successful in getting new gas mask equipment for our military, the firemen, factory, and miners with the help of too many to list. I was dancing, climbing Blue Mountain, cross-country skiing. I was beautiful. So men half my age wanted to marry me and take care of me. 1995, suddenly I took a major terminal attack. I won't go into the gory details. Green pus oozing out of my belly button, bleeding, breaking out in sores all over my body, mind-boggling pain. I just wanted to die. I knew I was dying again, but I had no idea from what had triggered this terminal attack. I knew I was poisoned, but I had no idea from what. Frankly, so exhausted from the years of fighting for human rights to save humanity from themselves, I just lay down in that little shack and waited to die. But children from all over the neighborhood refused to let me die. Yes, I was surrounded by children. For 3 years they had taken pity on me, urging me not to give up. They knew my story and had no difficulty in understanding that I endured the torture of my disease and daily worked to research diseases caused by chemicals, hoping to save their lives and their children's lives one day. And that was out of the mouth of those children. They would keep reminding me that. They had witnessed my ability to recover through diet before, so they were very demanding, more than encouraging, that I do not give up. They all hugged me, and each one telling me how much they loved me and made me promise I would not give up. I could not refuse them, so I promised I would. Each one hugged me, then left, taking the bus to school. They always came to see me before and after school. All day I racked my brain trying to think of what had poisoned me. I ate nothing unusual or different. I found the package of what I had eaten. It was a vegetarian burger from Vancouver, British Columbia. I looked at the ingredients on the package and saw nothing bad. Nevertheless, I called the company anyhow and asked the secretary, who well knew me by now, if she could check the ingredients and find out if anything had been added and was not listed on the package. She said she would and called me later. I went to bed covered in ice packs to tolerate the pain and lay still waiting for her call. In about a half an hour shortly thereafter, she called saying how sorry she was, but canola oil had been added to their products. And she knew by then that canola oil could trigger my attacks. By this time, I'd had evidence from Americans. It had been banned until 1994 because it caused similar attacks to animals that ate it. She knew I had written to her and all the health companies and food companies in Canada and the health agencies. And that's before the internet, people. I was doing this by mail. And I got people at the Collingwood Library to type things up for me and correct my spelling. And everybody was helping me do this, and get information out. The first title of my story was Death to Dancing. I thought that was a great title. And then it was Canola, the Silent Genocide, and I thought that was a great title. But each time I kept changing the title in because something else would happen, and I'd realize it wasn't just canola. And it wasn't so simple as going from death to dancing. It was a lot more complicated than that. Anyway, she promised me that from now on she had talked to the president and they would list it on their products. I thanked her and hung up. And then I remembered something else that she told me. She said, "Now, if you ever publish the name of the company, I'll get fired. So do I have your permission and your promise not to reveal the name?" And I said, "Look, I told you that anybody that helps him in my research, I guarantee your anonymity. I will never tell it. I will never give out that person's name." She said, "I think you should know that a health inspector had come into the factory and went right directly to the president and demanded that canola oil be added to their product as a preservative. And she further checked and saw that all their shipments to the United States had canola listed on the label because their law required it. But in Canada, thanks to Health Canada, those fascist pigs, it was not required. And so they didn't bother to list it on the products." I thanked her and I hung up. Okay, so now what? Well, I was used to detoxifying and done it 1,000 times before. So I went on a detox flushing immediately, which had been working successfully since 1989, but this time it didn't work. I just kept getting worse, no longer able to walk without assistance. Timmy, my hero, after school helped me to my feet to the outhouse 45 feet away behind the shack so I could go to the bathroom. The shack had no running water. I got my water from my neighbors. Then Timmy helped put me back to bed. Each child came in and gave me a loving hug and words of encouragement, saying that they were all praying for me. Jason, who I think was about 7 years old at the time, said, "Trudy, I love you so much. I would give you one of my legs if I could, but they're too short for you." Oh, I just burst out laughing, pain and all, that dear sweet soul, and we hugged. I did not sleep much due to the horrific, excruciating pain. Like lightning, it was electrifying fire ravaging my brain and every molecule in my body over and over again until I passed out from exhaustion. Don't know what time it was, but suddenly the next day I woke with a vision like a picture talking to me. "Get Okra. Okra will save your life." The words OKRA were huge, covering a whole wall. I immediately called Roger, my local Zehrs produce manager, and told him what happened. He said Loblaws don't let him buy it, but he would drive from Wasaga Beach to Toronto and go to St. Lawrence Market himself and buy me a case the next day. I asked Roger, "Okra? What the heck is an okra?" He said, "I know what it is. Why it should help you, I don't know, but I promise I'll get it for you. I can't wait to see if it actually will work." I had developed friendships with people from all walks of life in the Georgian Bay District in Ontario, who did not take issue with my visions like Sudbury did. They just accepted my visions and did whatever it took to help me do what I needed to do. The next day, Roger delivered a case to me, very early in the day. He stayed to help me wash a few, telling me okra is used for gumbo soup. I strained to speak. It was extremely painful. The words came out all garbled. "Phooey, me sick, no cook, me eat now." In an attack, that's what I sound like. My speech is that impaired. We counted them. I ate 22 right then and there. He helped me back to bed and left me giving me a hug as I promised to call as soon as I had a result, if any. I lay in bed all night waiting to see if the okra would work. Some time later I fell asleep because the pain did subside. It only took about 12 hours. The very next day the terminal attack was reversed. I could not only stand, I could dance. I could climb my neighbor's steps for the first time without crawling on my hands and knees since 1984. I could climb, and I could talk, and I could read. Only now something else happened. As if a massive dark cloud lifted in my brain, I suddenly had memory. I could remember my phone number, which I'd not been able to do since 1984. I could even remember my bank account number. Once upon a time, I was famous for my hypnogenetic imagery, analysis, and 100% total memory recall. But I lost it all March 1984, and it never returned. Once upon a time, I began to remember a little of who I used to be. And I want to tell you, that was painful. And then I put that out of my mind. I have work to do. I got dressed all excited, could not wait to see Roger, but first to stop at my bank and test if my memory really had been restored. I put on my sexiest short, skinny, tight dress, turquoise leather hat. I wanted to be seen. Overjoyed, deliriously happy, I also wanted this miracle recovery witnessed. Mr. Mack, a biochemist who taught me to understand biochemistry of bugs and dust mites, to help me with my allergies, and one of my many supportive to my research, warned me, always make sure you have witnesses, Trudi. So I plan to have witnesses. And he also said to me, make sure you get documented evidence. Don't just tell a story. And I did that too. I did all that. And still, nobody cared. But first to the bank. Once inside the bank, I told the teller, I have a miracle to perform. Get the manager. I want everyone to see this. The manager heard me and rushed out of her office. I then said to the teller, is my bank account da-da-da-da? Not going to put the numbers out there. She went over to the file and checked it and looked at me clearly surprised. Trudi, you can't even remember your own phone number or anything. What is going on? I jumped up and down, twirled and danced from one end of the floor to the other, saying, look at me, look at me. I can dance, I can twirl. I can bend my knees right down, squatting and get up without help. Look at me. I think I might be able to get my story published to save children from this demonic disease. I found a solution. It's in Okra. They all, of course, had heard about the terminal attack. Word spreads quickly in Wasaga Beach. They all wanted details, wanting to know if I'd found out what had caused this attack. I explained to them how I had been poisoned with canola oil because it was not listed on the package, and that I could not reveal the company's name. I was so happy. I said, I'm going to see Roger first, naturally sharing with them what that wonderful man had done for me, driving all the way to Toronto, not distrusting me for a minute, accepting that I'd had a vision and it was from God and he should help me, and he did. Also, it means I had to find another way to get my protein safely. Then the manager said, Trudi, I think it's time you stop trying to be vegetarian. It's just too hard to do it in this country. You go and get organic fresh meat from the farmers in Vellandale from now on. I agreed, and I did. Yes, all true. And I have plenty of witnesses. 1998, there were enough people who witnessed the miracle that the Collingwood paper agreed to do a story, which meant here it would be in demand. There would be a demand for okra, and Roger could order it for me. Wonderful article. I thought the miracle of my story would spread and get national media, and people all over the world would get the news after eating just a few raw okra every day. And the world would quickly respond, saving countless children from my disease and help everyone worldwide. Tragically, was I ever wrong? Nothing changed, and I was never able to get anything more published on okra since. 1996, Sun, Florida, USA tabloid did publish a lovely article but they forgot to mention okra and that my disease had been caused by canola oil. Or maybe they didn't want to face any lawsuits. I don't know what happened or why, but they did not mention okra. April 25, 2019, yes, my supply ran out and I'm in big trouble. But I do have a couple of friends and they're working on it. I had not had a vision since 1985. I'd gone through living a nightmare for 18 years, fighting for survival in and out of attacks, saving my mother over and over again from her own insanity, rescuing her from abject poverty. I felt so abandoned. Why was I still here? Get me off this disgusting planet, I would beg God. Well, I did sort of get a few small visions. I saved Jack's life and a few others and a few 100,000 men wearing gas mask equipment because of me. And I did it anonymously, plus a few thousand I saved without them ever knowing about it. I never understood now why okra was the answer to cheminosis, any disease caused by chemicals. I knew it worked, but the question as to why okra. I know its chemistry was similar to vitamin C, meaning if cooked, it dissipates. You can't cook it, or it doesn't feed the brain. I did know that the chemistry in okra was a unique amphetamine not available in any other form or drug. The biggest difference is that only a unique obitrol amphetamine worked on reversing my disease, but it is also highly addictive, while okra is not. Eat too much okra, and the only thing that will happen to you is you'll get diarrhea. It's so high in fiber. Yes, so much. May 89, risked my life to prove that obitrol will work. Not to get it on the market, bought it on the black market. But I did it so that I could just prove my theory. And I did, and it worked. I flew to New York dying, carried on the plane and carried off the plane. And I did all that, and I risked my life doing it. Why? To save children, that's why. Obitrol could never be used safely for any disease. It's too highly addictive and turns sane people into psychotic people. I had seen it, and I'm not going to talk in detail about that. It's not important. I knew I had to find a food in the diet to do the same thing, except I wanted it safe and not addictive. For instance, sugar is not safe and it is addictive. I cannot explain why God sent me the vision of okra in 1995 and why media did not help me get the message out to the world. I don't know. I kept asking myself, where did I go wrong? What can I do now? Do I move back to a Sega from Sudbury? Is this what God wants me to do? Is that why my supply is being denied to me to force me out of here? This went on for several days with no answer, drowning in terror, becoming terminal again. I passed out, not really sleeping. I had crashed from exhaustion. I did not come to until late the next afternoon, or should I say I was jolted by another vision. And it spoke to me, and it said, Trudi, how much are you spending a month on health supplements? Oh, about $300 to $500 a month, sometimes more. And how much do you think humans will spend on drugs in the future when millions of children will be born like you? They're already born like me. I have met a few recently about a year ago. How much in drugs? The vision demanded. I could not see clearly. I started to see children and people all over the world and crippled and crumbling and losing their brains, and I was seeing cells and molecules everywhere, and cities on farms and forests everywhere. And finally, I mumbled, trillions. It will be trillions. And how much does okra cost a month? Well, the answer was clear. It had been there all the time. And I don't know why I did not see it sooner. Practically nothing. Pennies a day, it is so cheap. Then the vision showed me clearly. How are poor today surviving? Can they afford the $300 to $500 a month it costs you? No, of course not, I mumbled back. The vision showed the horror and showed me the rest. The future of human species are being poisoned. All you hear about is global warming and whales being poisoned. But who is talking about your species being poisoned? You already know that answer. You tried to reach environmental groups, the Green Party, Greenpeace, and so many, and they did not care to help you save children from your disease. Okra is for the poor, not rich. Okra will cure the children if they are caught early enough. Okra will save those like you who have been too damaged to be cured, but they can still be functional, useful human beings and control the disease as you have done. Okra was created to save all humanity, but to save the poor who have no chance without it. Look at yourself. Raw okra has kept you alive at 77 with all the brain damage, nerve damage, tumor, dangerously low immune system, all caused by rapeseed oil from which canola is made, chemical additives in food, hidden in Canadian food not identified on the food label, and you have no right to know? You had to boycott Canadian food to survive. And the chemical additives in food. There's hundreds of thousands of people like you right now in the United States. Canola oil was banned until 1994. So canola oil didn't cause the disease to them. It's all the chemicals. Chlorine in the water, chemicals in the beverages, gas, oil, diesel, sulfuric acid, industrial poisoning, pesticides. How many times have you been poisoned? How many times, Trudi? Now I'm near tears as I'm seeing it all over again, and the flashbacks are just so horrific. I don't know, I can't count them. Too many every year since the age of 6. Then the flashbacks hit like a tornado. My brain drowned in reliving the horror of it all over again. No, I screamed in silence. No, I'd rather die than go through that again. No, I'll do anything, but I don't want to go through that again. How can I get the media community to support me? I cried, and I got no answer. The vision was gone. My heart was racing, pounding, exploding, emotions just shaking all over. Then I called a friend who knew how to help me calm down, because she understood the message, and she understood I had visions. She'd had a few herself. Yes, okra raw had to be published as a life-saving cheap food for children and people being poisoned by our insane drug, modern medicine, industrial society. I had to get my story published somehow. I had to survive, because not just 200 years from now, but right now, millions of children are being born with my disease. Millions of people already have my disease. The creator of the universe made the message very clear. Yes, okra is cheap. It's for the poor. And now I'm going to have to end here, because I'm running out of space. That's about 14 pages so far. But the message was clear. We're not just killing whales, fish, animals, and the planet. We're killing ourselves. Okra is God's solution to diseases we are causing by chemically poisoning ourselves and our children. And I'm going to leave the rest, and I'll put it at the end. I'm going to start with my biography now. So I'm cutting this short. This is the introduction, chapter 1. Temporarily over, moving